Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, this time of the year, a lot of the waters around us, especially if they're part of a river system or if they're part of a reservoir system or if they are a reservoir, these water systems a lot of times are let down. You might drive along and your favorite little lake or pond and see, oh my goodness, there's hardly any water out there. And this happened to me a week ago when I took my sister to visit her son, and we drove down to the area where I grew up, and it was 250, 300 miles away. And there's a little lake, this little lake where I first started fishing as a kid. My grandmother had a cabin there, and I was out on the dock, and that was my first fishing experience. So I wanted to show my sister where our grandparents had lived. And we go to the lake, and we're looking, and most of the lake was just bare ground. There's cottages all around it, and it was planned. And so you see this so often that at Norwood Pond, a lot of times they'll let the water out there, or some of the reservoirs around that are part of the Racket River. And I could go on and on. I remember telling you about the area near Wilson Hill, where it's like a game sanctuary, a wildlife preserve where you aren't allowed to fish. It's all restricted so that the wildlife has a chance to flourish there. Well, I have seen that area where there was no water for a year's time, and yet all of a sudden they opened it up to fishing for 2 weeks, and I'm thinking, there's not going to be fish in there. It was just dry land not too long ago, and yet it was full of big bass and northern pike. So what's the lesson here? Number one, they will let these waters down for a number of reasons. They may want to do repairs. A lot of times they let the water down as a buffer to when we know we're going to get thaws. We know that there could be a sudden runoff and there could be too much water and it could cause damage. And I know even Cayuga Lake, right now that lake is down 3 feet because they let that water out for different reasons, and also a buffer so that Seneca Lake, which doesn't have of course, the lake itself doesn't. The people that rule these areas, Seneca Lake doesn't have the buffer zone the same, so the water can flow out of Seneca into Cayuga and sort of be held there. Now, you have to be very careful in any of these type of things where that water that you let out has to go someplace, and it could be damaging someplace. So this all has to be thought out. But I think it's important. I think the most important part of this, first of all, that you recognize when you see these areas that all will be well, and those fish probably are going to survive that. They'll find areas of water where they can be. But the other thing is that sometimes it even makes these areas better. And so it's just, I thought of all the people driving right now to different places like this and seeing this, and if they might wonder, what has happened? How come there's no water where I used to float my boat? And this is the reason. And after what I saw last year by Wilson Hill, holy cow, it was the greatest fishing I think I've ever had. And I told stories of that, and I can't wait till next year if they open it up for two weeks again, because, oh my gosh, the fishing in places like this can be incredible. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.